The Netherlands is a very humble country. It's a country full of humble people. But for as humble of a country as it is, these people sure are living in luxury. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the ways in which the Netherlands is actually more luxurious than the ultra-materialistic United States of America. That said, the first thing that is normal here in the Netherlands, that would be a luxury in the USA, is smooth roads. Smooth roads. Since I've been here for just under a year. I think here in about 5 or 6 days, I'll have been here for 1 full calendar year. I have yet to see a road that compares to a lot of the roads that I would see back home. Really, the average road that I would see back home. And I know I've touched on this topic quite a bit in previous videos, but that's because I need you to understand, if you've never been to the Netherlands, I need you to understand that these roads are different. Really, the roads everywhere that I've been to in Europe are better than the roads in the US. I'm sure that there are exceptions to that rule, of course, but everywhere that I've been thus far, so Zurich, Switzerland, Antwerp, London, where else have I been? Valencia, Spain, and then of course the Netherlands, all had smoother roads than the USA. For example, you can see these roads right here. Sometimes the roads are made of, I guess, brick or stone. I don't really know what you want to call it. So these roads aren't always the smoothest, but they're still more well kept. They're more well maintained than your average American road. But as we go through this video, I'll try to walk along a street where you can see the regular roads. Let me go ahead and cross the street, as a matter of fact, so that I can keep going on the sidewalk. But the roads are just better. They're smoother, they're more well maintained. You can pretty much always see the lines if there are supposed to be lines on that road. That was a big thing back in Dallas. There would be times where you would be on the highway. Let me cross the street again. There would be times when you would be on the highway in Dallas and there are just no lines. The lines have all faded and you pretty much just have to guesstimate where you're supposed to be, which when you're driving 80 miles an hour, or I guess around 100 kilometers an hour, is pretty dangerous. It's pretty dangerous. So definitely not ideal conditions for driving, which probably lends itself to the high traffic accident, traffic fatality rate that you see in the US, and especially in car-centric cities like Dallas. It's kind of interesting that you could have a car-centric city and the roads are not good. It doesn't make sense. You would think that for a place that is car-centric, the roads would be top-notch. They would be premier, world-class. But this is not the case. And I think a big part of the reason why this is the case is because, for one, the roads here are smaller. So that naturally means that there's less maintenance that has to go into them. 2, I assume that they're more well built to begin with. So maybe they use better materials for the roads and they're built to last, unlike the roads in the US, which clearly are not built to last. 3, I think the weather patterns, or the generally temperate climate, lends itself pretty well to the smooth roads. Generally in climates where you have extremes, so extreme heat followed by extreme cold, etc., you'll see that the roads will be cracked and just generally damaged. And also, it's because of the selection of cars. People here tend to drive much smaller cars, and this is not by coincidence. Not only are the roads smaller, thus they favor smaller cars. You don't want to be driving on a road like this with a Ford F-250 with the lift kit, but also you pay road tax here based on the weight of your car. So if you have a very heavy car, you're going to pay a lot more in road tax. And as you know, more often than not, those trucks, those big lifted trucks, are not even practical. They're not used in a practical manner. So when you have to pay that extra money, you quickly realize that there's just no point in having something like that. Now, the next thing that is a luxury in the US but is normal here in the Netherlands is, you guessed it, bike lanes. Bike lanes. How many times have I talked about bike lanes in my videos? I would venture to say that at least 1 out of every 2 videos that I make nowadays, I mention bike lanes somewhere in the video, and that is for good reason. I cannot stress this enough. The bike lanes here, not only do they exist, unlike in a lot of places in the US, especially where I come from, the suburbs of Dallas, not only do the bike lanes exist, but they are extremely efficient and extensive. I hope you can see me with this sunlight. I'm trying to sort of pattern my walking in a way where I don't have too much direct sunlight on me, but can't control that. When you get sunlight in the Netherlands, you embrace it, because you know that in a few hours it's probably going to rain again. But you can see right here, you have sort of a hybrid bike lane slash street. These kind of confuse me. I guess you have to look at the signs. That's something that I still need to get better at, because I don't really know what most of these signs mean. But the bike lanes are everywhere, and not only are they everywhere, they're good. They take you where you need to go. They never just end abruptly without warning, or if they do end, they lead somewhere else. So maybe they'll lead to a suggested bike lane along a street. And they tend to be very smooth. They tend to be very smooth and devoid of any potholes or any dangerous conditions like that. So we're gonna go ahead and go back this way, but you can see this sort of material is what the bike lanes tend to be made of. It's kind of like if you've ever run on a track, maybe. If you've ever run on a track, that's kind of the same sort of texture. I don't really know how else to explain it, but like I said, it's a pretty smooth texture, and when you're riding a bike, it feels very good. You don't really notice the road, which is exactly what you want. When you're driving, when you're riding a bike, you don't want to notice the road. You want the experience to be as smooth and seamless as possible. So bike lanes are definitely a luxury for someone like me who comes from the DFW area. Any bike lanes at all, even the bike lanes that I saw and rode on in Valencia. So I'll go ahead and cross the street right here. So you can imagine that the Dutch bike lanes are on a completely different level of mind-blowing for me. Now, the next thing that is a luxury back home in the DFW area that is completely normal here in the Netherlands is public transit. The public transit system is world class. Now, I say that not really knowing what to compare it to, because my reference point is Dallas, and even in the European cities that I mentioned earlier in this video, I think Zurich is the only one that I actually rode the public transportation in. And let me say, Zurich gives the Netherlands a run for its money. I don't know what the rest of Switzerland is like, but Zurich definitely gives the NS a run for its money as far as the quality goes. But either one is better than anything I've experienced in the US, including New York. Now, I will say, where New York does have the edge, does this neighborhood even lead anywhere? I don't know. Where New York does have the edge, the advantage, is that its public transit runs 24 hours a day. So that's something that would be really nice if the Netherlands could incorporate. But given that it seems like people here tend to be more early risers, early birds, if you will, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So that's the one area where the Netherlands, the Dutch public transit could improve. We can go ahead and walk down this little alley right here. sometimes you see these little alleys behind these houses. This is really interesting. You never really see this back home. It's never just a walking alley. Wouldn't want to walk through here at night, but it's daytime, the sun's out. So yeah, show you some of this. But the public transit here, aside from the availability, is really, really good. The trains are smooth. I know a lot of people complain about the punctuality, but in the times that I've rode the bus and the train, they've pretty much always been punctual, at least within a few minutes of the time that it states on the NS app. And if you need more than a few minutes to transfer, then I'm sorry to say, but you might just need to improve your planning game. You should never leave yourself with just a few minutes to transfer. But of course, I'm sure that there are much bigger delays, maybe depending on the particular bus or train that you want to take. I just haven't experienced them myself. I also know that sometimes the train workers or the bus drivers go on strike, I want to say. I think I've heard about this happening in some cases, maybe not all of them, but some of them. But again, that's something that I myself haven't experienced. And even if I did experience it, even if I couldn't take the public transit, well, I guess for me, I'd be pretty cooked because I don't have a car and I don't have a European or Dutch driver's license. But even if I didn't have access to public transportation, it would literally just put me back on equal footing with what I experienced in Dallas. As a matter of fact, I would be better off because I would still be able to ride the bike, which was not an option most of the time back home in Dallas. Now, the next thing that is a luxury back home, but is completely normal here in the Netherlands, is the safety. So not too long ago, I made a video where I was walking around this Dutch neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I think I was walking either to the gym or back from the gym, I forgot. But anyways, I was walking around at around 1 a.m. with this camera right here that I'm filming this with. This is a 500 euro camera. Okay, I invested in this camera to improve the quality of these videos for you, just for you. So I was walking around with this expensive camera at 1 a.m. Also had my gym bag with me. I was basically a sitting duck for anybody who wanted to rob me or just otherwise take advantage somehow. I don't know what else they'd want to do, but anyone who wanted to rob me, that would have been the perfect opportunity. And I'm happy to say that nobody took that opportunity, because as you can see, I'm still walking around filming with this camera. That was something that I would never have thought to do back home. I would never walk around with a camera at nighttime at 1 a.m. alone like that, especially in a city like LA. There's people out there, not all of them, but there are people out there that are treacherous, that will follow you. They'll just do all kinds of shady stuff. And yeah, because of that, this is not something that I would do back in most cities in the US. It's just not something that I would do. But in the Netherlands, there has never been a time where I didn't feel safe. There has never been a time where I didn't feel very, very safe, very comfortable, and just generally not in danger. Now, this is for a multitude of reasons. I think I even touched on it in that video. One of the reasons being that the level of economic equality is much greater here than it was back home. And something that I've identified is that it's not so much poverty that creates crime, it's economic inequality. So it's poverty in close proximity to prosperity. That's what generally creates conditions for crime, and especially violent crime. Well, violent and petty crime. Crime in general. It's inequality. There's just not much inequality here. I mean, you can see you have these really nice houses in the same neighborhood as apartments. Nobody really lives much better than the rest here. Maybe a few people, I don't know, but I went on funda.nl. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but basically it's a housing website. It's sort of the equivalent to Zillow for Americans. And something that I noticed is that the nicest houses here look like, I won't say average homes back home, but maybe upper middle class homes. We're talking about houses here that cost 5 million euros look like houses that would have costed maybe 750,000, a million back home. $5 million back home will get you basically a mega mansion. We're talking 10 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, depending on where you are, of course. Not in LA, but in Dallas, yeah, you're gonna get yourself a mega mansion. Here, it's just getting you a big house. And I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I'm saying this to say that the highs in the Netherlands are not as high as they are in the US, but the lows in the Netherlands are also not as low, which creates more equality, more perceived equality at least, which of course creates less crime. Because when people feel like they are being made the victims of an injustice, they will react accordingly. Now, the next thing that is normal in the Netherlands that was a luxury back home, I'm sad to say, is health insurance. So I'm actually still in the process of getting my health insurance set up. I'm supposed to have gotten it set up, I think 7 months ago, but I had to do some sort of request for an investigation, some weird stuff. I don't even really know what it was with this organization, the SVB, I think, something like that. I don't know. But I'm basically awaiting their decision right now. And once they conclude their investigation, I should be able to secure my health insurance for, I want to say, around 120, 130 euros a month, which is really nice. Now, for what it's worth, I've never had my own health insurance plan back home, just because in the US you can be on your parents' policy until you're 26, and as I'm filming this, I'm still 24, so technically I would still qualify if I lived there. But from what I understand, from the research that I've done at the very least, health insurance policies back home, especially for entrepreneurs like myself, can run you anywhere from 400 a month to upwards of 1,000 or 2,000 a month, depending on if you have dependents on your policy, which sounds absolutely mortifying. Absolutely mortifying. And then on top of that, you still have to pay for doctor's appointments. You still have to pay for all of this stuff. If something actually goes wrong, what's the point of even having the health insurance? I don't really understand that. What's the point of having health insurance if they don't even really pay for anything? I don't really get it. But health insurance here is the norm, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's compulsory. I think it's compulsory in the US as well, but some people just opt not to get it, and if something happens, then they just accept the fact that they're cooked. But here, health insurance is more accessible because it's cheaper. It is cheaper, and if you can't afford it, the government will help you afford it. They'll give you money, basically, to pay for the health insurance. So that's good. I mean, that is the sign, that is one of the biggest signs of a developed nation, is that they essentially subsidize healthy people. But I digress. The next thing that is normal here in the Netherlands, but was a luxury back home, is high quality food. High quality food. And when I say high quality food, what am I referring to? Generally, I'm talking about the produce and just the quality in terms of how many preservatives are in the food. So I'm used to buying bread that lasts maybe a couple of weeks or even a few weeks, depending on when you get it. I've never bought bread that only lasted a week or a few days outside of the freezer. But here, I found that to be the norm. It is literally normal. I literally don't know where to walk right now, so if I'm just walking back and forth, that's why. But here, I found that to be the norm. It's normal to freeze your bread and to refrigerate your fruit, because if you don't, they're not going to last very long because there aren't as many preservatives. The food here in general, especially the vegetables as well, I've noticed, tend to spoil much quicker than it did back home. And at first, I found this to be the most annoying thing ever. I found this to be the most annoying thing ever because my girlfriend and I, we go grocery shopping once a week. And sometimes the food that we get, especially some of the vegetables, don't even last a whole week. So I was like, bro, what's the point of even getting and eating vegetables? There's no point in doing this if the food is just going to spoil. But what I came to realize as I matured a little bit, I came to realize that this is actually a good thing, because it means that the food is more natural, it's healthier. And I haven't done a study of the quality of food or anything like that. This is just based on my own anecdotal experience and a little bit of common sense. But I would venture to say that the food here at your average grocery store is probably on par with what you would get at a Sprouts, a Whole Foods Market, a Trader Joe's back home, which are high-end grocery stores that cost a lot of money. But here, a lot of times you can get this food for cheap, for at least much cheaper than you would get it back home in the US. So not only is it a luxury, but it's a luxury that is also a bargain.